I think that will bring that Armagh group on massively. Will they become All-Ireland contenders? Maybe a bit over dramatic. Maybe they won't. Maybe they don't have enough. But why not? If they're playing at that level and they're competing at that level, you just need a breakthrough. And if they were to break through this year and get over the line in Ulster, who knows? They could be playing a Dublin team that have more retirees now than they've ever had. They've more injuries than they've ever had.
Well, this is the thing. Like that brings us to a very good point about Dublin. And you've coached against both Dublin and Kerry this year. But like Dublin this weekend against Meath, who they annihilated at the Leinster final last year. I was at it. It was horrific view, and also Kildare against Westmeath this weekend. But like Eric Lowndes, he's now left the panel for unspecified reasons and period. Jack McCaffrey is obviously still away. Paul Mannion's still away. We're not sure what's happening with Stephen Cluxton. There's all those retirees. Kevin McManaman, he's away with the Irish boxing team preparing for the Olympics. Robbie McDade's injured. Owen Merchant's injured. John Small, Johnny Cooper. Then there's all those guys who've retired that have bucket loads of All-Irelands. Do you sense that they're coming back into the pack a little bit? Like there's only so many injuries and absences that any team can absorb.
Well, one thing, Shane, that I always, and I know people would jump at something like this that I'm going to say, right? And they'd say, oh, what's he talking about? But I always, during my time in Leinster, I always was mystified at how public some of the players from opposition teams were in like nearly making it a comical joke about Dublin and their dominance. And that's coming from players in other counties. And I just always found that so strange that you're going up against Dublin in a championship game, whatever it happens to be, and you're nearly conceding defeat in a jovial way, Shane. I just found that very, very strange. And I think obviously that their dominance hasn't helped Leinster football. It hasn't helped some of the counties, because you're probably looking in other counties thinking, what's the point? But you look at Wexford and you look at the performance Wexford put in against them. Okay, it was 15-7, right? Dublin still got over the line. But that was a worrying sign for me that they only scored 15 times against Wexford. Like Carlow put something like 217 past Wexford in Division 4 this year. Waterford beat Wexford in Division 4 this year. And you're sort of thinking to yourself, I'm not sure, are they as slick and are they motoring as well as they have been in previous years? Obviously not. And obviously Galway could have caught them in Salt Hill. I actually felt that we could have got something out of that game. Like, we conceded 3 penalties. I thought the referee in that day against Dublin, it's the first game out, I thought it was shocking. Like, he gave a couple of black cards. He gave a penalty for a foul near the corner flag. One of these new rule interpretations. And I think it was one of those games where it's, look, going to have to give one of these because it's a new rule, so we're going to have to be seen to be given one of them. But he gave bloody 3 of them. And looking back on the day, that was a big part of the game. But I just feel, Shane, there is vulnerabilities there this year. Dessie being suspended, I'm not sure that if that is, I'm hearing rumours on the QT that hasn't been well received by the likes of Cluxton and stuff, that they broke the training ban. It's negative PR for Dublin GAA. They're big into positive PR. They're big into keeping low profiles. They don't like that negativity surrounding the camp. And I just feel there's so much more happening around them now than has ever happened to them. In a negative context, players walking away, that's just going to create question marks. It's going to create sort of, doubts. And if there's ever a moment, and I know I texted a friend of mine today in Leinster, and I says to him, like, if there's ever a time to catch them, it's now. And I think if they're to win it this year, Shane, if they're to win it again this year, with the volume of personnel that they're missing, then I think we're all in trouble, because this is the year to get them. This is the year to catch them. And I don't know if Meath will beat them, and I don't know if Kildare or Westmeath will beat them. Obviously, the chances are very, very minimal, very slim. Everything needs to go in their favour. I think there's a belief roadblock there as well with those teams. I really do. I think there's psychological scarring for the last 10 years that could be very, very difficult to heal. The only thing I would say moving forward, generational wise, down under 20s beat them in a challenge game a couple of weeks ago. Meath Miners hammered them last year. Maybe the conveyor belt is just not as smoothly flowing as it has been in the past. Their underage teams maybe mightn't be setting the world on fire. You talked about the golden generation and everybody laughed about it, but really and truly, Shane, the only 5 players that probably would have started every week, Cluxton, McCarthy, Fenton, Con O'Callaghan, and probably you could argue Kieran Kilkenny, were the main 5. That was their spine, that was their backbone of the team. obviously you had the likes of Cooper starting every week, and
Dean Rock.
Mick Fitzsimmons and those guys. But I'm talking about, like, your nailed on man, your main man. That core is still there. But I just don't think, Shane, the guys that are coming in on the periphery are as good a quality as the guys that are leaving. And that's where I would just have my little doubts about them. Like, I seen Brian Fenton do things against Donegal in that league semi-final that I've never seen him do before. And people says, is it a boredom thing? Are they getting bored of being so cold and so clinical and winning games so robotically? Like, they don't even celebrate anymore when they score goals and stuff. And you just sort of think to yourself, has it become a little bit stale? It's hard to know. But I seen things, Shane, in that semi-final against Donegal that I've never seen before in their game. Sloppy moments like that. You just don't associate with Dublin. So.
Yeah. What do you make of the Stephen Cluxton, the fact that, well, if we're to take Dessie Farrell at his word, which we've no reason not to, that they still don't know what the situation is. And Cluxton, he's played a couple of weekends now for his club Parnells. If it's a case that Stephen Cluxton is just leaving the panel and the management hanging, I think that's very poor form on his behalf. But do you think it's more likely that Dublin do know the situation? Maybe he's retired and they're just never ever going to actually give a firm statement on it. What's your thoughts overall on it?
I honestly didn't really. I think I was around about the time we were playing, I think, and I wasn't really looking at that closely at that great detail. But I found it very strange that he wasn't back, Shane. And I think in such a short season, it's different if you're in a 7-game National League and then you have a 2-month break to the Championship. That's completely different.
Yeah.
But with the season so condensed and from start to finish, you're only talking about a 3-month window. I just found it very strange that he wasn't back, and I got a sort of a feeling during the National League that he probably wouldn't be back. Now, Evan Comerford obviously did nets for DCU when they won a Sigerson title, and one of the Roscommon lads would have been in that team, one of the Carlow lads in that team actually as well. And I was asking and doing a bit of digging about Comerford in the lead up to our National League game, and like they said, like he more or less just said to them, "You move and I'll find you." He's a top class goalkeeper, and he's not obviously at the same level as Cluxton, but then who is? And it was probably Shane more so what Cluxton brought to the group from a leadership perspective. He seemed to be the guy that was keeping a lid on things, even the social media, the media duties. I think he had a big role to play, and he was nearly like a mini manager within the playing squad. And I think that's what they'll miss more than anything, and it's a huge blow for them. I watched him in the All-Ireland final last year, kicked the first 2 or 3 kickouts away. Oisin Mullen won one of them. Can't remember who won the second one. And I sort of thought, oof, he's rattled here. But so the third one, ice cool, just chipped it to the right-hand side, didn't care. That massive Mayo press was on. Didn't faze him in the slightest. So that experience will be a big loss this year, and I just feel, Shane, that if Dessie Farrell's telling the truth, that's a very worrying situation for the group, and it's a worrying situation for Dessie from a respect point of view as well, that he would leave him hanging out to dry like that, particularly in the man's first year as manager, knowing the pressure that he's going to be under, replacing a manager of the calibre of Jim.
Join the OurGame Supporters Club at Patreon for €5 per month to get audio podcasts of the Hurling and Football Show and much more exclusive material.